Well, welcome to Parent and Family Weekend. My name is Amanda Niscode Dossett, and I'm a senior academic and career coach in the Center for Academic Planning and Exploration, which we call CAPE. And I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Kristen Farrell, and I am also a senior academic and career coach in the Center for Academic and Planning for Exploration, otherwise known as CAPE. And yeah, I'm going to let Amanda start us off.
Well, how many students do we have here today? Few? You get dragged here by your parents? Yeah, okay. And then we have some parents here as well, just hanging out. All right, well, we're glad to see all of you. This session is a little bit more geared toward parents, but we know students are in the audience too. So we're glad to see you and we're glad to work with you. So we just wanted to start off by giving you a quick overview of the presentation. And so we're going to talk a little bit about major exploration, some myths or some data about majors, major changers, those kinds of things, just to kind of give you some context for what it looks like at the U and also at colleges across the U.S. We'll share some student stories so you can hear directly from their perspectives about the major exploration and deciding process. We definitely want to share some resources for exploration, so you as a parent can support your student, and students can also know how and where to go to navigate and find support for major exploration. Also some conversation starters, like how might you talk with your students at dinner possibly tonight or later in the term about how they're thinking about exploring and choosing a major that's a good fit for them. And then finally, we'll leave time for questions at the end as well. We're happy to help you and help you feel hopefully calm and confident about the process.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some statistics and some of the things that we see here on campus, but also some trends that we see nationwide that might give us a little bit more insight into how students think about and act around their majors. First of all, 75% of first-year students at the U of M indicate they are tentative or unsure about their choice of major. And one thing that we know for sure is that students feel pressure right off the bat to definitely know what their major is, and that's probably not the healthiest feeling. Most students come and say they're definitely going to do one path until they change it. And so I think it's important to remind your student or yourselves that everyone else seems to know what they're doing, but in reality, a lot of other people don't know really what they're doing until they land on kind of the yes major. So in my previous position, I was an advisor for 9 years, and I saw students typically come in, especially during that first year, exploring majors, like saying, yeah, I know I came in saying I was going to do political science, but I'm actually interested in these 3 other majors that I've seen. And so students will oftentimes feel like they need to have a home base and feel nervous about switching, but feel better once they do. Nationally, we know that the percentage of students who enter with a declared major will change it at least once. And I would say from my personal experience, it's much more often than that, especially in their first year, because really it is trying to find a fit. And it can be really hard at the age of 18 to commit to something that you feel like you're going to do for the rest of the 4 years when you haven't really even taken those classes yet. So just kind of providing that space for openness and movement in the first year is a really good idea. We have more than 140 majors on campus here, which is a great strength of the U. And I feel like sometimes students come in knowing maybe what their parents have done, what their parents' friends have done, and otherwise not knowing exactly what the options are. And so this is another reason why students get here, take some classes, and then start to really reevaluate what they're really for sure going to do.
So it's so common that people need support and help changing their major, or that they do change their major, that I'm employed and Kristen's employed. There's a whole center for helping students with this process, not to mention their advisor, career counselors. So it's very normal, and like Kristen said, I think it's really good to ask yourself these questions as you learn and grow when you come to college. So it's common, but a common question that we get is, if you're still exploring, will it take longer to finish your degree? And also, do undecided students drop out at a higher rate? And so the answer to that first question, if you're still exploring, will it take longer to finish your degree? The answer is not necessarily. There are a handful of majors at the U that are very sequenced, and it really does matter, if you start in that major at the beginning, but those are pretty few and far between. So in reality, most majors, maybe take up, 30 to maybe 50 or 60% of your degree. It just kind of depends on the major and the college. And so it's definitely important to ask the question, like if you or your student are thinking about changing major, but they're worried about the graduation timeline, excellent question. Definitely ask your advisor about that, because the answer may be yes, but it might also likely be no. So just keep that in mind. And then, do undecided students drop out at a higher rate? Definitely not. But I think it's important just to, even if you don't know or you're exploring, just to be sure to engage in the process, ask the questions, ask for support, and then you can stay engaged in college and make sure you're finding something that's a good fit. Okay, so here's what we do know. As you've probably inferred from what we've said so far, it's okay to be undecided about your major. Most students are, or they will be at some point. So keep trying things, keep exploring, keep asking questions. Classes are a great place, as Kristen indicated, to figure out if something's a good fit. But there's many other ways as well, and we'll talk about those in a bit. You still can graduate on time and be very successful in college and after, so keep that in mind as well, and keep asking about your different options. And then the U has so many wonderful resources to help students throughout the process. There are online resources, there are in-person resources, there's events and programs, so there's no shortage of things out there. You just have to take maybe that first step and try something. So we wanted to take a minute to go back and talk about this process of selecting a major. And the reason we talk about that is really to help people see that it is in fact a process. Because even though once you decide on a major, like, you're still learning about yourself. And once you're in a career or your first job, you're still learning about yourself. And so although picking a major is not like a step A, step B, step C, you're done. Wouldn't that be nice? Even though it's not quite that simple usually, there is a method to the madness. And so, at least if you're like me, I like a visual. And so we share this with students, hopefully to help you think about this process. And just also remember that you're going to change, like who you are now, who you are next year, who you are after you have a volunteer experience or an internship. You're going to learn a little bit more about yourself. So as you gather this information, you want to evaluate and reflect. So kind of starting up at the top, learn about yourself. That includes things like identifying your current interests, what do you value in your learning as well as in your possible career, what are the things that you're really good at and skilled at or willing to learn, and also what are your weaknesses. Nobody is good at everything, and it's good just to acknowledge where you tend to gravitate or where you naturally feel most comfortable or most curious and engaged. So think about that just to get you started. Then once you have at least a start with that learning about yourself, you want to identify and research options. Kristen mentioned that there's 140 majors or more out there, plus minors and everything. And so We have certain assumptions about what a certain major is or a certain career, but when you get in there and you unpack it, you can actually learn a lot more about what it means to major in geography or what it means to major in environmental studies and policy management or all the different career options that are available in the nonprofit sector. So making sure you have the facts is really good. Then coming down to the bottom of that circle, now that you have a sense of yourself, at least for who you are now, and you've identified research options, it's really important to see where are their connections, where is their overlap, and how can you see what might be a good fit, right? And have that reflection just internally, talk with your friends, talk with family, talk with parents, talk with your advisor, talk with Kristen and myself. And then see where you are. Has that helped you move forward in a way? Has that helped you narrow some things down, rule some things in, or rule some things out? Then another central part of this process is to get out of your head and try something. It is really difficult to make any kind of decision, I find, if you're just thinking about it over and over and over again. It's really hard to think your way through that. So you need to try something. Like, maybe I think I would love to work in a hospital, but you go give it a shot and you're like, oh, right, no, okay? You don't know until you try. And so we have to see how what we think is going to be actually compares to what it is. But that could be a lot of different things. So we mentioned volunteering, internships, could be a student group or a class. It could be doing an informational meeting with somebody you know or somebody who's in the field that you're interested in. Could be attending an event or something like that. So it helps you really kind of test out what works and what doesn't and learn a little bit more about yourself and what's available. So then you come back and you're going to reevaluate and reflect about what you liked or disliked about the experience. Like, maybe you really liked the helping aspect of being in a hospital, but you didn't like the smell. Or you really like the idea of being part of healthcare, but what's really interesting to you is more of like the structures and the business side of it. Maybe health services management is a major you hadn't thought of. So it may not be all of healthcare that you didn't like about the hospital. Maybe it was just the hospital setting itself. So that reflection piece is really important. And then you come back and you're like, okay, let me see, now that I have a little more experience, a little more coursework, a little more life under my belt, where do I stand in terms of what's interesting to me? How have I changed? How have I grown? What have I learned?
Yeah, so we're going to share a couple of student stories in a video that we made to help you hear directly from the students in their voice about what their exploration process here was like and what process they went through.
One word to describe the feeling of being undecided would be scary.
Very confused.
Anxious.
Stressed.
I started in the College of Biological Sciences as a biology major, and I knew that that was 100% what I wanted to do.
I originally wanted to do a Bachelor of Individualized Studies.
I kind of started out thinking that I would be an accounting major.
I started off coming into college dead set on being a computer engineering major.
Right away I was asked like I had to pick a major, and so that was very difficult to start out with.
As I started taking my classes here, I realized that they weren't what I expected them to be.
My parents were both accountants, so they kind of pushed me to do that. When I actually took the classes, I decided that that really wasn't for me.
I realized that that wasn't really the best fit for me, so I ended up switching.
I was always interested in French, so I decided to continue that in college. And my first semester, I had a really impactful professor. That was kind of my moment of realization that this was something that I wanted to do.
I realized I really liked HR, and so I just took a couple classes in it just to see if it'd be something that I actually want to do, and I really, really liked it.
I visited the Center for Academic Planning and Exploration to try and figure out which major might still work for me, and one of the peer advisors helped me to figure out where I was going and helped me figure out that dental hygiene was still possible for me.
So my academic advisor helped me figure out my major, by just answering some of the questions that I had difficulties answering.
Did a lot of my own online research through my U and through Class Search.
So I think one thing that really helped me figure out a major and a minor was going to the Major and Minor Expo, and I was able to talk to some of the people who were already doing the minor.
I also talked to my peer advisor. I then, after physiology was suggested to me, I joined the club before declaring anything.
I think one of the biggest things was that there was a lot more out there.
Anything is really possible, and that I had to kind of trust my gut instinct of what I wanted to study. The advice I would give students exploring majors is do not freak out, in that you have time.
However, I think it's really important to start exploring during your freshman year.
The U is the best place to be if you're exploring majors. There are so many majors here, and all the people here are extremely helpful.
And I think you should talk to somebody who maybe is in the field that you're looking at, just to get real experience, real opinions about it.
Keep an open mind and don't be dead set on one major until you've really had a chance to explore them all.
After I decided on a major, I felt very relieved.
I felt happy.
Relieved.
I felt confident.
After I found my major, I definitely would say I was very excited for my future.
All right, so one of the things that I know and we know collectively is that students do really well when they talk or hear from other students. One of the exciting things that we do in CAPE is that we have the ability to connect students to other students who've done that major or are still doing that major, so they can talk to someone in their area about things that they like or don't like and get advice about classes and other ideas that they have. So there are tons of resources for exploration here. Academic advisors are a really solid place to start. We also have career services and career counselors for each college on campus. And we also use a lot of online resources through our Center for Academic Planning and Exploration. I'm going to click on this link that brings us to the CAPE website so you can see a little bit more about how we work with students who are undecided, in fact. And I don't think that's going to go, so we'll just exit full screen here and jump over to our website. So as we work with students, we in fact use our website on a really consistent basis when they come in and they're really undecided or unsure between a couple of different majors. And the way we use it is by looking at our major profiles page. And here it lists every major at the university, what you can do in terms of a major, minor, or possibly a certificate in that area. And then when you click on a major, let's see here, which one should I pick? Potentially, we'll say anthropology. It tells you what anthropology is. It tells you what college it's in here. And then it also tells you the different degrees that you could pursue in that major. And if there are themes or kind of pathways that make the major more specialized for what you want to do, it lists them here under themes. And over here, I think this is actually really helpful. Oftentimes it tells students, if this is not exactly the right fit, this is an option. These are other options that are similar to that major that you could check out. So here we have degree requirements that brings you directly to the catalog here at the university, so you can see the actual courses that make up that major. And sometimes the small print in this case is useful because it does describe more in depth. But I would also say the thing that I point out to students oftentimes is this little part that says required credits within the major, because it helps them think about how much of their time here that's going to take up. But if we go back to the website, You can also access a ton of career information through this website. And so this is the part where I would like to point out that we have career services and we also have CAPE. And CAPE is really for working with students who are undecided, who are thinking about all their options, want to explore, I really like history, but I don't know what I would do for a job in that situation. So we will go through, and we have tons of websites and information from the U.S. Bureau of Statistics about what students might do for jobs when they graduate. We also have information from U of M alumni about what they have done with that major. So that is what we connect here. When you go to career services, it's usually once you have a career kind of identified and you want to search for internships, you want to talk about finding a job in that area. So that's the differentiation I like to make between the two services. So if we move on then in our presentation, the last thing I'll show you is just our website and all the different resources that we offer. So we do one-on-one coaching around academic and career decision making. So Amanda and I do that on a regular basis with students. We also teach a 1-credit course offered in both fall and spring that actively works with students through that career planning process, or that career exploration process, I should say. And then the Major Network Peer Connections program is what I talked about, talking to students who are in your major. And we offer every year a major minor expo, so you can come and literally walk around and explore all the different majors and minors that exist at the U of M, talk to people in that department, maybe see a faculty member who's at that table. And then we also have more resources on our website. So I would encourage you or your students, if they're curious, to go ahead and check that out.
I'm also going to promote our peer coaches because I supervise them and I think they're wonderful. So if you'd like to talk to a student, a current student, about the major exploration process, or if you're feeling overwhelmed and you just want to figure out, like, how do I get started with this? Or there's a gazillion resources, which one do I use? Or my parents went to this session at Parent Family Weekend and said I needed to come to CAPE, so here I am. Those are all good reasons to come to peer drop-ins. They're really nice and really caring and want to be helpful. And it's a great way just to take that first step. So, as promised, we want to talk about ideas for talking about major exploration with your student. So here are a few that could be really, really helpful and open up the conversation. So one is share your own story about your career. If you went to college, your major. If you didn't, okay. Just your career path, because I'm guessing many people, at least that's what the statistics show us, a lot of people don't end up in a job directly related to their major, like some do, but it changes and evolves over time. Sometimes they're in a different industry, but you learn and grow and figure out what you like and you don't like, and you build. You build off each experience. And so I think normalizing the exploration process and the evolution of career that happens over one's lifetime can be really helpful. And so please share your story and encourage them to talk to others. Yeah, and if there's other people, like I think they mentioned this in the video, if you know someone, like I'm interested in being a physical therapist, if you happen to know someone who is a physical therapist or knows a physical therapist, that could be a great place to start. But also, if you don't, we can help you find people. That's part of our job, is helping students connect with alum and talking to them. But also just talking to folks about, how did you choose your major, even if it's not something that you are particularly interested in, or how did you make those decisions? Questions that create conversation. What are you learning through your coursework? That's a big one, because aside from just picking a major, or thinking about major only in terms of career, you're going to be here for, I guess, 3 years, 3.5 more years or so. And so it's important to think about, what are you motivated and engaged to study? Like, what do you look forward to? What homework is not a drag, and you really want to do it, like that tells you a lot about what might be a natural strength for you or something where you could really excel. Favorite class this semester, or even favorite teacher. Sometimes it's not the content that's as appealing as maybe the learning style, and that gives you a little piece of data to learn. And what do you like doing outside of classes? Maybe it's a student organization. Maybe it's a particular office on campus that is a student support service. What brings them energy? What are they curious about? What is often on their minds? And then instead of asking, what's your major, the question that is asked at family gatherings all across the nation, another way to say it is just tell me about some of the majors you're interested in right now. And that's another way to open it up, take off some of the pressure, and help them talk about not just what they're majoring in, but how they're thinking about it. And so finally, just help them get out of their head, jot some things down, articulate what they're thinking about, what's working and what's not. That's just as important, and encourage them to come utilize the resources that the U has to offer.
Yeah, and I would love for anyone who has questions to ask them. And while you're maybe thinking of those questions, I'm just going to say that as much as we talk about kind of first-year students coming in to access our services, we also work with plenty of sophomores and juniors who are also kind of halfway or maybe a third of the way through their major, and they're like, actually, this is really not for me. And so I just want to assure you that if you are seeing these signs of your student not being happy even after the first year, that CAPE is a really good place for them to come and check out. So yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm gonna rephrase so everyone can hear. The question was where CAPE is located on campus, and we have the immense luck of being in the Brunix building, which is if you walk from the Union, kind of over by the Wiseman Art Museum, which is the shiny building of all different shapes and sizes. We're right across the walkway from that. So we're right on the edge of the river. And we're on the 5th floor of that building, which is a kind of a hub for students studying and going to One Stop to check out a whole bunch of different academic questions. So we have the good fortune of being there, but thanks for that question. Yeah. Yeah.
My son's in the College of Liberal Arts, and he's considering math, and I was just looking on your site, and there's a math that's a BA and another one that's a BS.
Yeah.
If he were to choose the BS and had to switch colleges, how does that work? Is there an application process?
Yeah, it's like we planted you in the audience. That's a great question, too. We work with students oftentimes who are switching between colleges, and that is one of the, I would say, one of the confusing pieces of the U that we strive to make a lot more understandable, because it is very simple as oftentimes checking to see what prerequisites you have, and then also filling out a form to identify that you want to change your college. And so there are ways to do that. Oftentimes I would suggest he should probably have a conversation with his advisor about the benefits of being a math BA versus a math BS, because there are different aspects. With a BA in CLA, you're learning 4 semesters of language, and so if that is kind of right down his alley, he may want to stay in CLA. If he's interested in some more rigorous science courses, he might look at CSE for that math degree.
So it's not really a competitive process, it's more of have I met the requirements to switch schools?
Yeah, the question was, is that a competitive process? And it depends on the college. So there are certain colleges on campus, like CSE or like the Carlson School, of business where it is, students have to know ahead of time that they want to transfer, and it can depend on their GPA, and it can depend on the courses that they've taken and completed and what their grades in those courses were, but not always. Oftentimes, I have a lot of students who in the past have switched from like CLA to CEHD or CFANS, I know all these different names, but ultimately that happens pretty seamlessly.
There's also a, on our CAPE website, there's a tab under, I think, major planning that says transferring within the U. And we know it's confusing, and so we're here to answer those questions. And some things are a straightforward answer, and some things, like Kristen mentioned, it kind of depends whether how it happens or if it's beneficial. And so be sure to check that out, and then we're happy to kind of answer, or their support advisors happy to answer as well. Now I've got the mic. Is there someone over here? If not, okay, I'll bring it over. Someone made a reference to Phil Donahue earlier, and I got it. I don't know if anyone else.
Hi. We have a sophomore who completed his freshman year at Mankato State last year. Didn't like it. Now he's here this year, not liking it. Really doesn't know what direction he wants to go in. Do you offer in your center literal, just like any kind of testing services? I know the kids do that when they're in high school at various grades, but he also, because of COVID, he waited 2 years to start college. So we have a 21-year-old, 21, 22, and you can just kind of see the perfect storm here of stuff of, he's just really unsure, and we're unsure of how to help him. So we're wondering, does he literally need to go back to doing some testing to just see, kind of do a gauge what his interests and aptitude, where that lies?
Amanda probably has some ideas, but I'm also going to say that oftentimes when students are undecided or feel like they don't know what they're doing, that tends to really impact their emotional state about college, because it can feel really daunting to be taking classes that you don't necessarily like or that you're not finding interest in, and then you're like, what am I doing this all for? And that can feel really upsetting. And it's also hard, I think, when you're not meeting your like people in the classes that you like, because you're also not making social connections. So there are a lot of connections that are interwoven with all of this. And oftentimes we end up with students in our office that are just struggling in multiple ways because of that. So I just want to validate that experience, first of all. We also do offer several types of testing. We have a strong interest inventory that we offer. And that's a pretty historic test that started, I think, right after World War II, that helped veterans in the first part get started with what they were interested most in. But it's a good way of looking at where your interest lies. And then we also have, Amanda, do you want to talk about some of the other testing options that we have?
I think the strong interest inventory is probably the main one that our office uses. There are, some of the career offices might have other things, but it gives us a place to start. It would be wonderful to magically spit out what people should be doing, but I talk about it as a place to start. And I think if your son or anyone else, not to promote our office, just to promote it, but this is the kind of situation where it's pretty complex. And so it can be good to sit down for an hour and talk with one of us. And, sometimes it's about eliminating what you don't like. Sometimes it's about having a place to start. That's kind of what the strong interest inventory does. Sometimes it's about, figuring out what you like to, what really, is motivating to you, what kind of experiences, even if it's not classes. But I think sometimes the overwhelming piece can lead to feeling like you don't know what to do, so you do nothing. And that's what we want to try to help, is just to try to help people figure out what's that first step to take, and how do I build momentum, and really, feel good about that I'm I'm putting myself out there. What do we learn about ourselves? Let's come back and do something else again that is manageable and reflect together. And so there are some tests, but we also understand that maybe I don't want to diagnose your son, but I would say that if someone is feeling lost and they don't know where to start, there are some tests that you can take, but they don't predict a major. They give you a little more data
About yourself.
About yourself, to give you a place to work from. And so there's some things that, in tenets with coaching, that's one of them, starting with your gut and knowing what you don't want to do, breaking things out into a more manageable process. Because if I told you, go look at these 10 websites and then, come back and let me know, that's hard for anybody. So we work together with students to help them do it in a way that goes with their learning style. Does that help a little bit? Okay.
So can you major from two different colleges? Can you do one major from CLA, another from Carlson, or a minor from one of the other colleges?
Sure. I actually had this written down as something that I should say too, is that students oftentimes will say, I'm really interested in German, but I'm also really interested in business. And so they'll sometimes put two majors or a major and a minor together. And because there's the ability to sort of be in two colleges at once, students are perfectly capable of doing that. And sometimes we'll talk to them about that because one major has some strong skills that they want to be able to exhibit, and other major has a lot of content and interest and passion for them. And so it's oftentimes kind of finding multiple different pieces and classes that keep things fresh for them while they're doing their degrees. Amanda, do you have anything to add?
I would just say that the major is obviously very important, but it can feel like it's the defining feature of college. And I would say, echoing what Kristen said, that the major is important, and if you choose to do any kind of second major or minors, which are smaller, maybe 15 to 20 credits, that's very important, but it's the culmination of all of these educational experiences plus different things that you might do to leverage and learn and get experience with, again, volunteering, interning, those part-time jobs are all very valuable. That really is collectively what defines your college experience as well. So major's important, but there's more than the major that's really going to help you be prepared for a career and really also help you get the most out of your education at the U.
Yeah, sometimes those experiences are more important than the major themselves, just because you're building your resume that way.
We are on child number 4 right now, and their story relates very well in our family. Our second oldest daughter entered college after losing a friend in high school and stuff, and so she had a lot of personal stuff going on, and she was totally undecided. And just a kind of a been there, done that kind of recommendation is maybe your office, and do you guys work with the counseling center so that when a student is not feeling like they belong, that you can kind of work together? Do your offices overlap?
We don't overlap with student services, but student counseling services are Boynton, but we do refer quite a bit. I oftentimes find that we have students in our office that are seeking just as much a connection and a place for expressing some of their mental health challenges as much as they do with major. So I think we refer quite a bit. Amanda, what would you say about that? It's quite often that students end up crying in our office. So I always have Kleenexes at hand, and it's not because we're being mean to them, but because oftentimes talking about some of these things just touches sensitive parts, and they just have a hard time kind of managing all the different things that they've got on their plates at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, Amanda, we've got a question down here, so maybe just sprint.
It's an easy one, too. When do you guys hold your career major fair or whatever? Is that what
The
you call it?
Major Minor
Yeah,
Expo,
or
yeah,
Major Minor.
in February. This year was the first year it came back after COVID, and the value of it being in person was really evident. And it's really fun to see students being able to walk around, pick up pamphlets, pick up candy, talk to people. Yeah. Do you have anything else to add? Yeah, prizes and swag from different departments.
Whenever we have events like that, whenever we have events like that, it will be on our website. We do have an Instagram account as well. And then actually next Thursday, we're doing a kind of Major Express Fall into Your Major event. Is it on our homepage maybe?
I'll find it.
So it's like the full-time coaches will be doing kind of a 2-hour window of drop-in coaching as well. So if you're just like, okay, I just want to try a little something but not fully commit, I just want to go in and see what it's like. Are they nice? Are they going to be helpful? And I think there will be cider. I think there will be cookies. So I think if you go to our homepage, maybe, is it on the, just click on.
I was trying to get there. But,
Oh, okay. That's okay. Can you go to the name? Yeah.
Cape?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there it is.
There we go. Okay, look at those fall leaves. So yes, if that's something you just, hey, why not? You have nothing to lose but 15 minutes and gain a donut, or I'm sorry, cookie. Then we'd love to see you there as well.
There are also a lot of career and internship fairs that happen throughout I just volunteered at the Center for Community Engaged Learning oftentimes does an internship fair where students can walk around and see different organizations that have volunteer or internship positions for them. And that's, like we said, a really great way to sort of say like, oh, that seems interesting, or oh, I would hate to do that, because the no's are just as important as the yeses. So, yeah.
Hi, do you often see students that want to double major, double minor, can't decide? I mean, I think my son wants to major.
I think that's not uncommon, but I don't think there's nothing saying you need to. I think if someone has a good reason to do it, and maybe I always say to the students, like, usually one major is not going to cover everything, right? So you may have, if there's something missing, maybe there's a reason to pursue a second major, or there's a reason to pursue a minor if you feel like there's something you just are really curious about, you want to learn about, or that you feel like is important to career exploration or whatever. But I think you don't have to, and I think sometimes students feel like, well, I got to fill up all my credits and I've got to do all these things, and you can, but there's a lot of other things that you can also do to explore. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's doable, depending on the combination.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
The question is whether we would provide guidance, and oftentimes, yeah, we talk about kind of the importance of covering different things that you're interested in, but also not feeling like you have to do everything, that your experience and other engaged things that you do on campus will speak for yourself as well.
Other questions? Yeah.
This is much more granular than the majors, but just since we're freshmen here, what are the timelines for choosing classes for the 2 semesters?
Choosing classes for the first semester happens in the summertime.
So for spring and the next fall, start planning ahead, choosing the classes, when do they sign up for classes for spring semester and next fall semester?
Yeah, so right now, students should have a Q date and time that they've gotten emailed, and that just tells them when their first option to register is. So it happens sort of in a seniority process and a confusing alphabetical order that changes each semester. But ultimately, it depends on the number of credits you have, and then they'll get an email indicating when they can register, and it would be ideal if they meet with their advisor prior to then to talk about classes for next semester. But what's most important is to look around, develop a schedule, register for those classes, even if you don't get a chance to meet with your advisor first, and then go and kind of check in afterwards. Does that answer your question? Yeah, planning ahead for next fall is something that would be also maybe talked about in that advising session. I will also say that if you're looking at, if we go back to the program details, which is on the university catalog, oftentimes you have this sample plan over on the side, and I think that's really helpful as a way to look at like what it would look like to do this in 4 years. And that includes like language requirement, all the liberal education requirements. You can kind of assess where you are on this 4-year plan, and also use a what if APAS, which your student might know what that is. So.
Or he'll find out soon, I guess.
Yeah.
Wrap it up, or one more? Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more question, if anyone has one, and I can stick around also for a few minutes while there's transitioning, if anybody has anything.
Maybe we'll head out to the lobby, Amanda.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you all so much.